When we talk about yoga and especially the details of it, the real ideas and philosophy behind the yoga, we have to go back to the ancient texts. And one of the most profound texts that we come across is Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. As some of you might be aware, that yoga in Hinduism or in Indian philosophy, itself is a branch of philosophy or a school of philosophy. And it is pretty much tangled with these certain philosophical ideas and religious ideas. And if you're going to practice yoga, it's very important that you go into that, not just do it in terms of physical exercises, but really understand it. How does it work and functions in your body? So that's why I was looking for books, especially those books which could explain the ideas of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras in simple, easy manner and help you understand the philosophy of yoga. Because if you directly jump into the Yoga Sutras, then it can be a bit difficult, a bit challenging. So that's why I came across this book called Patanjali's Yoga Sutras by Sri Ravi Shankar, who is the founder of the Art of Living, which itself is a big institution, and they too have their own courses on different yoga and meditation practices. So I found this book interesting because it's really simple. It's for those who are not really familiar with this philosophy of yoga and why should they do it. So in that sense, it's quite useful. And of course, at some point, I'll get to the original texts and explain you the Yoga Sutras and the earlier philosophies in a bit more detailed manner. But to begin with, at this point, let's just stick to the very basic ideas. So in this book, Sri Ravi Shankar, he talks about the very basics of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and the yogic philosophy. And he explores the spiritual ideas behind, including the concept of God. And all of that in its entirety makes a lot of sense. So if you're going to go for yoga classes or just learning by yourself, learning this philosophy will really enhance your experience. So in this book, he starts with this very basic question that why do we call yoga a discipline, or in other words, why is there any need for this discipline? And he explains it in very simple and clear terms. He says that when you're thirsty, you want to drink water. You don't feel like it's a rule to drink water when you're thirsty. You just know it. Similarly, when you are hungry, you don't feel like there's any discipline behind it. It just feels like you're supposed to eat. So whenever it comes to any kind of pleasure, which is really the basic human instinct, there is no discipline that is required there. So when is discipline relevant? The discipline is relevant when something is not really enjoyable at the very first step. A child never says that it has the discipline of running to his mother when he sees her. But the child needs discipline when he is supposed to learn certain skills, which will of course be very much useful all throughout his life, be it language or any other skill. So the need for the discipline arises when something is not really exciting or charming to begin with, but you know for sure that ultimately there will be a fruit that will be enjoyable and valuable. And same is the case with yoga and meditation practices. So when you are in joy, you are at peace or experiencing happiness, you already have that sense of self. You enjoy that. There's no discipline, there's no requirement of discipline. But when something has gone wrong in your life, then you need some kind of discipline to calm it down, certain practice to come back to yourself, and the experience would be better. Just like a patient needs some discipline, let's say somebody is diabetic, then he needs discipline to not eat sugar. So when there are challenges, then you need discipline. So that is why Patanjali begins his ideas with this concept of now, present moment. When things are not really clear and your heart is not in the right place, you just need to come back to right now. Because as you're very well aware that your mind is often engaged and caught up in the world, the outside world all the time. And you see the world through your senses, through your eyes, you listen to the sounds, you smell, you hear, you touch. All through these senses you are engaged with the external world. And it's constantly happening, whether you want it or not, whether you like it or not, it's happening right now in this moment. So that's why to begin any yoga and meditation practices, we need to be aware of this. We need to be aware of this present moment. You can see that sometimes your distraction helps. So for example, you're having some kind of pain in your body and then you start watching a movie. For some time you forget the pain. But where does that go? And should you take that path of distraction? Well, yoga wouldn't recommend that to you. The idea, the whole purpose of yoga is to be onto oneself, to bring this integrity in you and to make you whole. And to avoid that path of distraction and fragmentation, which we, especially the modern people, are more vulnerable to. Because we get so much of information around us, so many things we experience, it just puts so much more stress on our minds, and then it makes it all the more stressful, and that affects our body, and you can see the consequences. When you're stressed, you can have different kind of bodily experiences. Certain parts of your body start hurting. There can be a headache, there can be some pain or tension in the muscles. And most importantly, your consciousness, which is experiencing all these things. And through yoga, what we want is all these things are in sync. You understand what is going on in your body, and immediately you can take care of that. And in fact, you can start taking care of all of your body and mind even before you can experience any trouble. You prepare yourself for all those troubles. And it can only happen when you practice yoga. When you drop all the things that you're receiving information around you, you are able to drop that, and you are able to realize the self that you are. That simple feeling of I am and I exist. That's the whole purpose. So, coming back to the point in how it's a part of Indian philosophy, and if you see in these different schools of thoughts in Indian philosophy, the ultimate aim there you'll always find is that of moksha, the end of suffering. And once again, the idea behind uh, the philosophy of yoga is to end your suffering, whether they are your physical suffering, mental suffering, or spiritual suffering. And that's why these practices can really help you. So make sure when you start practicing yoga, you do the physical exercises. You also focus on what are you trying to achieve with that? How is it related to your mind? What's the ultimate philosophy? And how you can make it a wholesome experience. It does not have to be, in fact, just a 1 hour class, or you finding particular time frame in your day, but rather it's a way of life. You live a particular way of life, and then you will be able to deal with all these different kinds of sufferings in a much better way, as is the idea of this philosophy.